Throughout history, some people have found themselves trapped in situations so dire that the idea of escape seemed laughably impossible. Yet somehow, through a mix of planning, ingenuity, nerves of steel, and sometimes sheer dumb luck, they pulled it off. These aren't fictional Hollywood blockbusters. These escapes really happened, often under the tightest security and in the face of death if caught. From prisoners of war digging their way to freedom to convicts breaking out of supposedly inescapable fortresses. These stories have become legends, studied by military historians, criminologists, and thrill-seekers alike. And it all starts with two escapes so daring, so detailed, that even today they seem almost impossible to replicate. Number 10. The Great Escape from Stalag Luft 3, 1944. In the dark heart of World War II, Stalag Luft 3 in Gaga, then part of Nazi Germany, was considered escape-proof. It wasn't just a barbed wire camp, it was a fortress of anti-escape engineering. The Germans built prisoner barracks on stilts to make tunneling nearly impossible. The sandy soil would collapse without proper supports, and the guards installed seismograph microphones to detect vibrations underground. Searchlights swept the camp constantly, and guard towers loomed over every inch of the perimeter. But the prisoners held there were no ordinary men. They were Allied airmen, many with engineering skills, fluency in multiple languages, and an unshakable determination to get back in the fight. Roger Bushell, a charismatic and fearless RAF pilot nicknamed Big X, masterminded an escape on a scale no one had ever attempted. Not one, but 3 tunnels, codenamed Tom, Dick, and Harry. The tunnels had to be dug over 30 feet deep to avoid detection, and each stretched hundreds of feet beyond the fence line. Prisoners scavenged bedboards to shore up the walls, used tin cans as digging tools, and hid excavated sand in discreet pouches sewn inside their trousers. Shaking it out during daily exercise walks, a tactic they called penguining, forgers produced fake ID papers from scraps of cardboard, while makeshift tailors stitched. Civilian clothes from blankets and uniforms dyed with coffee and vegetable stains. The work was grueling and dangerous. Tunneling in the stifling underground air meant working by candlelight, where the risk of collapse or suffocation was constant. Communication between teams was done in whispers, and every man involved knew that if caught, they could face severe punishment or even execution. After months of careful planning, Harry was finally ready in March 1944. On the freezing night of the 24th, 76 men crawled one by one through the narrow, claustrophobic tunnel. Emerging in the forest beyond the fence, they could almost taste freedom. But fate intervened. The tunnel exit was 10 feet short of the tree line, forcing the men to crawl across open snow in plain view of potential patrols. By dawn, the alarm had been raised. German forces launched an enormous manhunt, deploying troops, dogs, and aircraft to track the escapees. Within 2 weeks, 73 had been recaptured. And in a shocking act that violated the Geneva Convention, Hitler ordered 50 of them to be executed as a warning to others. Only 3 men successfully made it to freedom: 2 Norwegians who navigated their way to neutral Sweden, and 1 Dutchman who managed to return to Britain. The breakout was immortalized in the 1963 film The Great Escape. But the real life, courage, and ingenuity behind it remain unmatched in the annals of POW history. Number 9. The Escape from Alcatraz, 1962. By the 1960s, Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary in San Francisco Bay was infamous as the prison of no escape. Its isolation was its greatest weapon. Even if you somehow bypassed the cell bars, steel doors, and guard towers, you'd still have to survive a swim through freezing, current-heavy waters known for their unpredictability. It was here that Frank Morris, a man with a razor-sharp mind and a history of prison, Breeks found himself serving time alongside brothers Clarence and John Anglin, seasoned bank robbers and skilled swimmers. Over the course of months, the trio executed a plan that blended craftsmanship, patience, and deception. Using spoons stolen from the cafeteria and a homemade drill built from a vacuum cleaner motor, they slowly chipped away at the concrete around the ventilation ducts in their cells. To keep the holes hidden from guards, they covered them with carefully painted cardboard panels that matched the wall color. Behind the cells lay a disused service corridor which they turned into their covert workshop, where here they constructed a raft and life vests from over 50 stolen raincoats, painstakingly sealing the seams with heat from steam pipes and waterproof adhesive. One of their most ingenious tricks was creating decoys to fool the guards during night counts. Using soap, plaster, and toilet paper, they sculpted realistic human heads, adding actual hair collected from the prison barbershop. Under dim light, the heads appeared convincingly real as they lay tucked under the blankets of their beds. On the night of June 11, 1962, the trio made their move, slipping out through the holes, climbing to the roof, descending a kitchen vent pipe, and reaching the shoreline. Under the cover of darkness, they inflated their makeshift raft and paddled into the icy, choppy waters of the bay. By morning, they had vanished. The FBI, Coast Guard, and local authorities scoured the area, but no bodies were found. Officially, the men are listed as missing, presumed drowned. Yet tantalizing clues have fueled decades of speculation. Alleged sightings in Brazil, family members receiving unsigned postcards, and in 2013, a letter claiming to be from John Anglin, stating they had lived in hiding for decades. Whether they perished in the bay or slipped away to freedom under new identities, their escape remains one of the most captivating mysteries in American criminal history, a story that has inspired books, documentaries, and the 1979 film Escape from Alcatraz. Number 8. The Maze Prison Break, 1983. In Northern Ireland's turbulent history, one event stands out as the largest prison escape in modern European history, the breakout from HM Prison. Maze. On September 25, 1983, the Maze was considered the most secure prison in the UK, built specifically to hold paramilitary prisoners from the Irish Republican Army (IRA). During the Troubles, its 8-shaped cell blocks, multiple layers of fencing topped with razor wire, high watchtowers, and 24-hour armed patrols made escape seem like pure fantasy. Yet for the men inside, escape wasn't just a dream, it was a mission. Months of preparation went into the plan. The prisoners smuggled in pistols and knives, sometimes hidden in food deliveries, other times brought in by visitors sympathetic to their cause. They forged keys, studied guard rotations down to the minute, and practiced coordinated movements inside their blocks without arousing suspicion. They even organized fake disputes and distractions to mask the movement of contraband. On the afternoon of September 25th, during a guard shift change, the one moment each day when security was most vulnerable, the operation began. Inmates in one block overpowered guards with smuggled weapons, taking hostages and securing control of the building. Some guards were bound and gagged, while others were forced at gunpoint to cooperate. The centerpiece of the plan was a food delivery truck. Once the prisoners controlled it, 38 men piled into the back, crammed shoulder to shoulder in near darkness. The truck rolled toward the main gate, but at the final checkpoint, suspicion arose. A struggle broke out, shots were fired, several guards were stabbed, and chaos erupted. But in the confusion, the truck still managed to breach the gate, blasting through to the outside world. Waiting outside were IRA operatives ready to scatter the men into safe houses and rural hideouts. Helicopters soon filled the sky, roadblocks appeared across the countryside, and a massive manhunt began. Within 48 hours, half the escapees were recaptured, some after violent shootouts. But 19 men simply disappeared. Some fled overseas using forged documents, while others blended back into sympathetic communities where locals shielded them from police. The escape was a public relations disaster for the British government and a propaganda triumph for the IRA. It showed that even the most fortified prison could be breached with patience, discipline, and unwavering resolve. To this day, the Maze Breakout is studied as a masterclass in organized escape planning, though its violent nature left deep scars for both sides of the conflict. Number 7. The Escape of Henry Papillon. Few prison break stories have gripped the public imagination like that of Henry the Frenchman, whose memoir Papillon became a global phenomenon. Convicted in 1931 for a murder he claimed he never committed, was sentenced to life in the notorious French Guiana penal colonies. Devil's Island, his ultimate destination, was a place designed not just to punish, but to crush the human spirit. Surrounded by deadly currents, sharks, and impenetrable jungle, it was a living hell. From the moment he arrived, S's mind was fixed on one goal: escape. For the course of 13 years, he attempted it multiple times. In one daring try, he lashed together sacks of coconuts as flotation devices and drifted for days before being caught. In another, he ventured into the jungle, only to battle starvation, tropical disease, and hostile terrain before being recaptured. Each failure meant brutal punishment, months of solitary confinement in a pitch-black cell, minimal food, and near-total isolation. But each failure also brought valuable lessons. He learned the patterns of the guards, the rhythm of supply deliveries, and most importantly, the timing of ocean currents. He discovered that twice a year, for just a short window, the tides flowed away from Devil's Island instead of slamming against its rocky cliffs. That knowledge became the foundation of his final plan. In 1945, while stationed on a work detail near the island's cliffs, he secretly prepared a crude raft using a sack stuffed with coconuts for buoyancy. On the chosen day, as massive waves crashed below, he leaped from the cliff into the raging sea. The shock of the cold water nearly paralyzed him, but adrenaline pushed him forward. For hours, he fought the swells, clinging to his coconut raft as the tide slowly pulled him away from the island. The journey was agonizing, blazing sun during the day, freezing winds at night, saltwater sores on his skin, and the constant fear of sharks circling below. After several days at sea, barely conscious and close to death, he washed ashore on the South American mainland. From there, he made his way into Venezuela, where he was granted political asylum. Whether every detail of Papillon is literal truth or embellished for storytelling remains debated. Some historians believe he blended his experiences with those of other escapees. But even so, the essence of his story, relentless determination, ingenuity in the face of impossible odds, and the refusal to submit to a life sentence has made Henry an enduring symbol of human resilience. To this day, the name Papillon stands for the belief that even in the harshest prisons, hope can still find a way out. Number 6. The Great Escape from Libby Prison, 1864. During the American Civil War, Libby Prison, in Richmond, Virginia, stood as one of the Confederacy's most feared POW facilities. It housed captured Union officers in squalid, disease-ridden conditions. The prison's thick brick walls, barred windows, armed sentries, and its location in the heart of Confederate territory made escape seem hopeless. But in January 1864, a group of determined Union officers decided that hopelessness was not an option. The leader, Colonel Thomas E. Rose, was a man of sharp intellect and unshakable resolve. Alongside Major A.G. Hamilton, he studied every inch of the prison. His attention was drawn to the basement, a vile chamber nicknamed Rat Hell. For obvious reasons, hundreds of rats scurried among piles of rotting food, and the air reeked of sewage. It was a place guards avoided unless absolutely necessary, which made it perfect for a secret escape plan. Using small tools, pocket knives, spoons, and bits of wood, the officers dug through the basement wall into an abandoned storage shed. This alone took days of backbreaking work in near total darkness. From the shed, they began the most dangerous phase, tunneling under a city street to reach a tobacco warehouse outside the prison grounds. The tunnel was less than 2 feet high, forcing men to wriggle forward on their bellies. Air was scarce, and candles barely flickered in the stale atmosphere. The diggers worked in shifts, their bodies coated in dirt and sweat, every sound muffled to avoid alerting guards above. Disposing of the excavated dirt was a constant challenge. Buckets of soil were hidden under straw in the basement, packed into pillowcases and spread thin on the prison floor, or smuggled into the yard to be scattered during exercise periods. The risk was enormous. Any guard discovered the tunnel, all involved would face brutal punishment or execution. After nearly a month of digging, the tunnel finally emerged in the cold air of early February 1864. On the night of February 9th, the escape began. In total, 109 Union officers crawled through the cramped, suffocating shaft. Some emerged disoriented and shivering, others too weak to stand. The streets of Richmond became a maelstrom. Escapees were aided by local Union sympathizers, while others were chased down by Confederate patrols. When the dust settled, 59 had reached Union lines. 8 were recaptured and 2 drowned while crossing the icy James River. It was one of the largest and most daring mass escapes in American history, a story of ingenuity and sheer determination against the odds. Number 5. The Escape from Sobibor, 1943. Sobibor, Nazi death camp in occupied Poland, was a place engineered for one purpose: systematic murder. In its short existence, hundreds of thousands of Jews were sent there to die. The camp was encircled by double barbed wire fences, landmines, and guard towers with machine guns. To attempt escape was to sign your own death warrant. Yet in October 1943, a group of prisoners decided that if death was inevitable, they would die fighting. The uprising was led by Leon Feldhendler, a Polish Jewish prisoner, and Alexander Pichorsky, a Soviet POW with military experience. They knew a chaotic mass revolt would fail, so they opted for precision. Over several weeks, they quietly assassinated key SS officers, luring them into workshops on false pretenses. One guard was told a tailor had finished a fine leather coat for him. Another was promised a pair of new boots. Inside, the officers were struck down, instantly killed with axes, knives, or sharpened tools, then hidden before their absence could be noticed. By the afternoon of October 14, 1943, 11 SS men were dead. At the prearranged signal, prisoners armed themselves with stolen weapons and charged for the camp gates. Gunfire from the watchtowers erupted, mowing down dozens. Others hacked through the fence and bolted across the minefield beyond, explosions ripping the ground apart. Screams and chaos filled the air, but momentum drove the survivors onward into the forests. Roughly 600 prisoners were in Sobibor that day. Around 300 made it outside the camp perimeter. For days, German forces scoured the countryside, aided by collaborators. Many were hunted down and killed, but about 50 managed to evade capture until the war's end. The revolt's impact was so profound that the Nazis shut down Sobibor within weeks, dismantling it completely to erase the evidence. For the survivors, the escape was more than a bid for life. It was a defiant act of resistance, a refusal to let the Nazis dictate the terms of their deaths. Today, Sobibor stands in memory as one of the rare places where victims of the Holocaust rose up and fought back, rewriting the narrative of inevitable doom with one of unyielding courage. Number 4. The Escape from Colditz Castle, 1942 to 1945. During World War II, the Germans turned Colditz Castle, a looming medieval fortress perched on a rocky hill in Saxony, into Auflage Forcia, high security POW camp for Allied officers with one thing in common: they had all tried to escape from other camps. The idea was simple put: all the most incorrigible troublemakers in one place, under the heaviest guard, and they'd finally give up. The Germans badly underestimated their guests. The castle's location was daunting. Sheer cliffs dropped to the river muled on one side, and high walls with watchtowers surrounded the rest. The main courtyard was patrolled constantly, and roll calls were strict. Yet the prisoners turned Colditz into what many called the Escape University. They formed national escape committees, shared intelligence, and approved plans to ensure resources weren't wasted. Skilled forgers created fake passes and travel documents. Tailors stitched German uniforms from blankets and scraps, dyeing them with coffee or crushed berries. Carpenters crafted tools, saws, and even skeleton keys from scrap metal scavenged in the workshops. Escapes came in many forms. Some men hid in laundry carts or under piles of rubbish carried out of the gates. Others used disguises, posing as German officers, guards, or even visiting civilians. One Dutch officer, Lieutenant Damien J. van Dorning, famously concealed himself inside a rolled-up mattress, which was carried out during a furniture delivery. But the most ambitious plan was conceived in 1944 by British officer Bill Goldfinch and others. Build a glider in the attic, using stolen wood, bed sheets for fabric, and an improvised workbench. They painstakingly assembled a two-man aircraft hidden behind a false wall. The plan was to launch it from the castle's roof, glide over the river, and reach friendly territory. The glider never flew. The war ended before it could be tested, but it was proof of the prisoners' boundless creativity. By the time the Americans liberated Colditz in April 1945, more than 30 successful escapes had been recorded, with many more attempts foiled at the last moment. Colditz Castle had been intended as the final stop for escapees. Instead, it became a testament to the fact that no prison is truly escape-proof if those inside refuse to quit. Number 3. The escape of Alfred Wetzler and Rudolf Verba from Auschwitz, 1944. In 1944, Auschwitz-Birkenau was the largest and most deadly Nazi extermination camp. Tens of thousands of Jews were being deported from Hungary, and few knew the full truth of what awaited them. To Slovak Jews, Alfred Wetzler and Rudolf Verba decided to change that. They didn't just want to save themselves, they wanted to bring the horrors of Auschwitz to the world's attention. For months, they studied guard routines and identified a section of the camp used for storing construction materials. They chose a stack of wooden planks that could be hollowed out to form a hiding place. Carefully, they prepared their supplies: bread, margarine, and a mixture of tobacco soaked in gasoline. The latter was a simple but ingenious trick. German shepherds used by the SS hated the smell and would refuse to approach. On April 7, 1944, during the evening roll call, Wetzler and Verba slipped into the woodpile. Fellow prisoners covered the entrance with more planks, making it look untouched. The next morning, their absence was discovered, triggering a massive search. Guards and dogs combed the camp, but the woodpile went unchecked for 3 days. When the official search ended, the men emerged under cover of darkness and crawled through the barbed wire at an unguarded point. Their journey through occupied Poland and Slovakia was grueling. They walked only at night, sleeping in barns, fields, or ditches during the day. They relied on sympathetic locals, often at great risk to those who helped them for food and directions. Avoiding main roads and patrols, they trekked over mountains and across rivers until they reached Slovakia. There, they contacted Jewish leaders and began dictating what became the Verba-Wetzler Report, a 32-page document detailing Auschwitz's gas chambers, crematoria, prisoner numbers, and the timetable for incoming transports. The report was smuggled to the Allies and eventually publicized, prompting international outrage. Historians believe it directly influenced Hungary's decision to halt the deportation of its remaining Jews, saving tens of thousands of lives. Their escape was not just an act of personal bravery, it was an extraordinary mission that combined survival with the moral imperative to bear witness. In doing so, Wetzler and Verba struck a blow against Nazi secrecy and ensured that the world could no longer claim ignorance of Auschwitz's horrors. Number 2. The Great Escape from Stalag, Luft 3. The Wooden Horse, 1943. While most people know the famous 1944 Great Escape, few are aware of the equally brilliant Wooden Horse breakout from the same POW camp just a year earlier. Stalag Luft 3 was a German prison camp built specifically to thwart tunneling attempts. The sandy soil made tunnels collapse easily, and the Germans had installed sensitive microphones underground to detect digging. Any traditional tunnel plan would almost certainly be discovered. That's why British POWs Eric Williams, Michael Codner, and Oliver Philpott decided to think outside the box, or, more accurately, inside the horse. They constructed a large wooden vaulting horse, the kind used for gymnastics, with a hollow interior big enough to conceal 2 men and their digging tools. The plan was deceptively simple. Each day the horse would be carried to the same spot in the exercise yard. 2 men inside would quietly dig, while a third distracted guards by performing vaulting routines on top, masking the sounds of scraping and hammering. At the end of the day, the diggers would hide their tools inside the horse, climb in, and be carried back to the barracks. They even used the horse itself to conceal the day's excavated soil, later dispersing it discreetly around the camp. This went on for months, without arousing suspicion. The discipline was incredibly everyday. Same time, same spot, nothing to suggest anything unusual. By October 1943, the tunnel extended over 100 feet beyond the wire. On a moonless night, Williams, Codner, and Philpott slipped into the tunnel and emerged outside the camp. They had prepared civilian clothes from scavenged materials and forged travel documents. Their escape route took them by train through Germany and Denmark, blending in with local travelers. In Copenhagen, they boarded a Swedish vessel, finally reaching neutral Sweden. Their story became the basis for the book and film The Wooden Horse, showing how an escape didn't have to rely on brute force or high drama. It could be won through patience, precision, and an idea so absurd it was invisible to the enemy. Number 1. The Escape from the Inescapable Bank of France Vault, 1946. In post-war Paris, the Bank of France stood as a symbol of the nation's financial recovery. Beneath its stately facade was one of the most secure vaults in Europe, buried deep underground, sealed by multiple layers of reinforced steel, and protected by armed guards around the clock. No one had ever breached it from the outside, till Master Thief Lacan decided to attempt the impossible.
Ow!
Was no ordinary criminal.
Ow!
He was a planner, a strategist, and a man who understood that an escape was only as good as the entry plan that came before it. His idea was to reach the vault from below using Paris's labyrinthine sewer system. The city's sewers stretched for miles, a dark, foul-smelling underworld of tunnels, chambers, and hidden connections. Mapping them required weeks of reconnaissance, often wading through waist-deep water in pitch blackness. Once they located the section directly beneath the bank, S-Team began drilling upward into the vault floor. The work was slow steel and concrete. Don't yield easily on dangerous. They could only drill during the night, muffling the sound with thick blankets and timing each burst of noise with the rumble of passing trains overhead. The air was stifling, and the risk of flooding or gas buildup in the sewers was constant. On the night of the job, the team broke through into the vault itself. Inside they moved quickly, filling sacks with gold bars, stacks of cash, and precious securities. Every move was calculated, no time wasted, no unnecessary noise. Once loaded, they lowered the loot into the tunnel, sealed the hole from inside, and slipped back into the sewers. By dawn, the bank guards discovered the empty vault and sounded the alarm. Police scoured Paris, sealing manholes and flooding sections of the sewer network. Butt and his crew had already vanished into the countryside, using prearranged safe houses. Some gang members were eventually caught, but himself disappeared, his fate remaining a mystery. Some say he retired quietly under a new identity. Others believe he fled abroad, living lavishly on the proceeds. This was more than a robbery, it was an escape in reverse. True brilliance wasn't just in getting in, but in leaving without a trace, evading one of the most intensive manhunts in French criminal history. From ingenious wartime POW breakouts to a post-war heist that defied the world's best security, these two final stories cap off our list with a reminder, whether in war or peace, on the battlefield or in the city's underbelly, human ingenuity is often the most powerful key of all. If you enjoyed this journey through history's most daring breakouts, make sure to hit that like button and share this video with friends who love incredible true stories. Subscribe to Top Tier 10 for more mind-blowing top 10s. Ring the bell so you never miss our next countdown, because the next unbelievable tale might just be your new favorite.